Really appreciate the opportunity to present today. Good morning to everyone and good afternoon to others. Today, basically, we're going to talk about some standards and ethics bulletin. What we're going to focus on, and as a quick introduction, my name is Justin Nielsen, a director with Alignment Management Associates up here in currently cloudy Portland, Oregon, which I know is surprising. But we are going to go over some of the recent NACVA updated FAQs. And for those who aren't familiar, the FAQs are basically available to help members interpret and adhere to the NACVA standards. And so amongst those, we have quite a few FAQs. What I'm going to talk about today are a few of the more recent FAQs. We did have some updated FAQs that were approved in June 2025. Obviously, as the profession is continually moving forward, there's an ability and a need to have some clarity with regard to these standards and how we all interpret and adhere to those standards. These FAQs, this includes 15 total new FAQs that the Standards Board really worked hard to put together and were approved. Of those, 7 of the new FAQs address artificial intelligence. Obviously a very hot topic currently, and it talks about really the use by NACVA members and how to successfully use AI to defend your analysis, to construct your analysis, and just the ways that we want to ensure adherence with the standards by using any AI technology. And this will be covered in a future presentation, but just wanted to mention that. Real quickly, just go ahead and show you exactly where these are located. So for ease of use and reference, they are located on the NACV website. This is a quick link that you could go to find these FAQs. And just as to make it easier to go through the website, because sometimes I need a little help myself, you basically go to the main page under Association. You click on that link. That will take you here. And from here, you want to go on to the Professional Standards and Ethics link, which will bring you to that main page. And within the main page on the Professional Standards and Ethics, there will be a link for Standards and Ethics FAQ Library. And that's where you want to click on. And this is just a snapshot of the very first page. There's multiple pages. Obviously, as I mentioned, there's 15 new FAQs. There's quite a bit more in there. But this is where you'll start, and you can go ahead and see all those FAQs provided by NACVA.
I don't want to interrupt.
Sure.
We can't see your screen, though. You're not showing your screen.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Thanks. There you go. Thank you.
Got it. I'll go back here just so we can start again. This is the website, the actual link. So you want to see the standards and the FAQs. Again, real quick, Association, move through over here to Standards and Ethics, here to the Ethics FAQ, and then that brings us to our FAQ library. Now, again, today we'll be talking about just a brief discussion of some of the new FAQs that were approved in June 2025. Of these new FAQs, that includes 2 litigation-based FAQs and 13 non-litigation-based FAQs. Something that people may not know, all the FAQs do include an interpretation section. So sometimes that can be very handy to understand exactly where and how to interpret these FAQs and how to adhere to the standards best on these FAQs and questions. So the first one I wanted to go over, this is the new litigation FAQ number 1. And this one basically talks about serving as a joint expert. And the question is, can a member or credentialed designee serve as a joint expert for parties with adverse interests? And the answer is yes. But because of the inherent adverse interests present within all joint engagements, it is critical that a member or credentialed designee maintain continuous adherence to the ethical principles within the NACVA standards. Some additional clarification within that FAQ. It is advisable to consult legal counsel before accepting such a role, and to have written understanding of the nature, scope, and limitations of which services and responsibilities of the member/credential designee, which may imply representing only one party at a certain point in the engagement. It also discusses that if a conflict of interest arises during the engagement, the expert must immediately disclose it to all parties and consider recusal if it cannot be resolved. In addition to this, which was the other FAQ number 2 within the litigation update, it does say that the ethical obligation by the member or the credential designee to disclose to all parties immediately upon finding if there is any sort of conflict of interest. Quick side note, we actually just recently signed up a case that is similar to this, where we're quote unquote a neutral expert. This is for a partnership buyout. And so we're representing both parties as a neutral expert. And as part of that, we did sign up and talk to counsel on both sides. So they're both included on the engagement letter. And we specifically noted out the nature, scope, and limitations of our engagement. So I think it is very important that legal counsel be involved in this type of engagement. It just helps take away any impropriety. And also, I believe if there is a conflict of interest, and this is just myself personally, I typically would just recuse myself from that unless there is an ability to resolve that. I'm not exactly sure exactly what could be, how we resolve a conflict of interest, but the standards do allow you to do that as long as both parties agree to it. So the next FAQ that we're going to highlight is one of the new non-litigation FAQs. And this one it relates to basically information provided by the client. And the question was, can a member credential designee rely on client-provided information without corroboration? The answer to that is actually yes. According to NACVA, GACVA professional standards, a member or credential designee may rely on information provided by a client or other source without corroboration, provided that such reliance is discussed in the report. In my opinion, I feel that you would want to be explicitly clear that any information that was not corroborated is discussed in the report and presented as such. So while you are allowed to use information that is not corroborated, as long as that is disclosed, when we get to the next FAQ, non-litigation FAQ, it talks about reliance on client-provided information. Does that also extend to the client's selection or weighting of data? This really gets into what we do, which is professional judgment. And so the answer to that is no, meaning while a member or credential designee can use the data provided, a member or credential designee must exercise professional judgment in determining which data is most relevant and how it should be weighted in the analysis. Each individual member and credential designee is responsible for analyzing the data and determining its appropriateness for the engagement. This includes the appropriateness of the agreed approaches, methods, and selected procedures, and the use of professional judgment. Obviously, in a calculation engagement, that involves the parties agreeing to certain approaches, typically, or methods. But I think what this is really talking about is that while even in a calculation engagement, the professional judgment and use of and weighting of any data used is the responsibility of the member and the credential designee. So I think it's very important to understand that while you can rely on information that is uncorroborated, it is the responsibility of the member or the credential designee to provide professional judgment and to actually understand the appropriateness of the agreed approaches, methods, and selected procedures. Moving on to another one of the highlighted FAQs. Can a member or credential designee delegate the responsibility of professional judgment to a client or anyone else? This really falls into kind of the same bucket that we just talked about. So the answer is no. Regardless of whether a staff or evaluation tool are utilized during the value development stage of estimating a value, the individual who signs the report is ultimately responsible for the adequacy of the procedures performed and the opinion rendered. A member or credential designee may not delegate the responsibility, judgment, selection, or implementation or assumptions or areas requiring professional judgment to anyone. So just going back and harping on what we talked about in the previous FAQ, while you may have information that is provided that is not corroborated, or if you're in a calculation engagement where you agree upon certain approaches or methods to be used, the actual application of those methods and the final either opinion or calculation of value, that is the responsibility, judgment, selection, or implementation of areas requiring professional judgment, which is basically the responsibility of the member or the credential designee. Moving forward, and I guess this still kind of elaborates on that FAQ number 3. This does include the selection of evaluation approaches, methods, and the extent of procedures performed. The member credential designee must maintain objectivity and professional integrity when performing evaluation services. A member credential designee is responsible for exercising their own professional judgment to come to conclusions and cannot delegate this to their client or any other party. Again, this means a member credential designee cannot rely solely on a client to determine the appropriate methods or weighting of data. And I think the important thing there is solely. Again, in a calculation engagement, there may be a discussion, but there has to be input between the member credential designee and the client. And so I think we're getting close to time there. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and then pass it back over.